Rain poured relentlessly over the city streets as Daniel, a successful businessman, parked his sleek black car outside a quiet cafe. He had somewhere important to be, but as he stepped out into the downpour, a sight stopped him in his tracks. Huddled against the closed cafe door sat a woman, her thin coat soaked through, her hair plastered to her face, and her arms wrapped tightly around herself for warmth. She looked fragile, almost invisible against the bustling world that hurried past without a glance. Daniel's instinct was to move on, he was late already, but something inside him wouldn't let him. He paused, watching her tremble, her eyes downcast as if expecting nothing from anyone. Slowly, he walked over, kneeling slightly so she wouldn't feel intimidated. "You'll freeze out here," he said softly, slipping off his own tailored coat and draping it over her shoulders. She looked up in surprise, her eyes filled with both suspicion and gratitude, as though unsure whether to trust this stranger. Without waiting for her to protest, Daniel offered his hand. "Come on, let's get you warm," he urged. She hesitated, glancing at the wet pavement and then at the open car door. After a long moment, she accepted, her cold fingers brushing his as he helped her to her feet. The leather interior of his car felt impossibly warm compared to the storm outside. "Grace," she introduced herself quietly, sat cautiously, still clutching his coat around her. She had no idea why this man had stopped, why he had chosen to notice her when so many others hadn't. As Daniel pulled away from the curb, neither of them knew that this simple, unexpected act of kindness was about to set in motion a night that would change both of their lives forever. The rain drummed gently against the car windows as they drove through the city lights. Grace sat quietly, still trying to make sense of why this man had picked her up. Daniel broke the silence with a half-smile. "I'm actually on my way to a wedding," he said, his tone casual but tinged with something unspoken. After a pause, he added, "It's my ex-fiancée's wedding." Grace glanced at him, surprised, sensing the complicated history behind those words. He chuckled lightly, though there was no humor in it. "I didn't really want to go alone," he admitted, keeping his eyes on the road. Then, almost as if the thought had just sparked in his mind, he turned to her and said, "Why don't you come with me?" Grace blinked in disbelief. "Me? To a wedding?" She let out a nervous laugh, shaking her head. "I don't have anything to wear. I haven't dressed up in years." Her voice carried the weight of someone who had long stopped imagining herself in beautiful things. Daniel's expression softened. "Then we'll fix that," he said with quiet certainty. Without another word, he steered the car toward an upscale boutique. The warmth inside contrasted sharply with the damp chill outside, and Grace stood awkwardly at the entrance as Daniel spoke to the staff. Within minutes, she was being guided to a fitting room with armfuls of elegant dresses in rich colors and delicate fabrics. When she stepped out in a simple but stunning gown, Daniel's approving smile was genuine, not the polite kind people give out of pity. He insisted on finding matching shoes and even a delicate necklace. For the first time in years, Grace felt seen, not as a charity case, but as someone worthy of respect, as if she truly mattered. The wedding venue glowed with golden light, its crystal chandeliers scattering brilliance across the marble floors. Daniel stepped through the entrance in his tailored suit, but it was Grace who caught everyone's attention. On his arm, she moved with quiet poise, her elegant gown flowing as if it had always belonged to her. The delicate necklace at her collarbone caught the light, making her seem almost radiant. Conversations faltered. Heads turned. Guests leaned toward one another, whispering, their curious glances following her every step. Some murmured as though trying to place her face, convinced she must be a well-known actress or a figure from high society. Daniel's ex-fiancée, standing near the arch of white roses, spotted them. At first, her smile was practiced and polite, but as her gaze lingered on Grace, a flicker of unease crossed her features. Her eyes narrowed slightly, not in recognition, but in discomfort. This was not the awkward, lonely Daniel she had left behind. Grace, meanwhile, seemed untouched by the stares. She carried herself with an effortless dignity, not trying to outshine anyone, yet somehow becoming the brightest presence in the room. The years of hardship were invisible now. In their place was a woman whose quiet strength seemed to command respect. Daniel noticed the way people looked at her, but he also noticed something else. Grace didn't shrink from their attention. Her chin was lifted, her step steady, and her smile, though small, was genuine. She didn't belong to this world of opulence, yet in that moment, she fit into it as though she had always been part of it. Without saying a word, her presence was rewriting the assumptions of everyone watching. And Daniel knew they had only just begun to see who she really was. The reception hall was alive with music and laughter when the master of ceremonies suddenly called Daniel to the stage. He froze for a split second, not expecting to be put on the spot. As he stood, ready to walk forward, he felt a gentle squeeze on his hand. Grace looked up at him with a small, reassuring smile. "Let me," she whispered. Before he could respond, she was already moving toward the microphone. The room grew curious. This mysterious, elegant woman was about to speak. Grace took a breath, her voice calm but carrying a quiet strength. "I'm not here to talk about love stories or weddings," she began, her eyes sweeping across the guests. "I want to talk about something we all have the power to give: kindness." She paused, letting the words settle in the air. She explained how just hours ago, she had been sitting alone in the rain, invisible to the world. "Daniel didn't just offer me warmth and a meal," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "He saw me. He treated me like I mattered, like I was a person worth noticing, worth respecting. And that changes everything." She spoke about dignity, about how one small act can light a spark in someone's soul, how it can make them believe again. Her words were simple, but they cut through the layers of pretense in the room. You could hear the quiet sniffles, see people subtly wiping their eyes. "I may not have much," she concluded, her gaze warm yet steady, "but tonight, I have hope. And that's worth more than anything." When she stepped back, the silence was thick with emotion. Then, slowly, the room erupted into heartfelt applause not for beauty or status, but for truth. As the evening wound down and the last of the music softened, Grace found herself surrounded by strangers, only now, they weren't just curious onlookers. Several guests came forward, introducing themselves warmly. A woman offered her a position at a local charity, a man handed her his card for a job opening at his company, and another guest quietly mentioned she had a spare room if Grace ever needed it. The stares that had once been filled with speculation were now full of genuine respect and kindness. Daniel watched from a short distance, his chest swelling with quiet pride. She was no longer the woman he had found shivering in the rain. She was standing tall, her eyes alive with possibility, her voice confident as she thanked each person sincerely. When it was finally time to leave, Daniel led her back to the car. The night air was crisp, but the warmth between them lingered. As they drove through the quiet streets, Grace noticed they weren't heading toward the spot where he'd found her. Instead, Daniel pulled up in front of a modest but welcoming apartment building. "It's yours for as long as you need it," he said softly. "You deserve a safe place to start again." Grace turned to him, her eyes glistening. For a moment, she struggled to find words, then whispered, "You didn't just take me to a wedding, you took me back to life." Daniel smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile. "Maybe you did the same for me," he replied. They parted with a shared look that said more than words could. Two lives, once so far apart, had crossed paths, and through one act of compassion, both had been forever changed. The night faded into quiet, but the hope it sparked burned brightly in them both. From a rainy night on a deserted street to the glowing lights of a lavish wedding, Daniel and Grace's journey became a testament to the transformative power of kindness. What began as a simple gesture, a warm coat and a ride, unfolded into a night that reshaped two lives. Grace, once invisible to the world, found herself not just noticed but celebrated, her voice touching the hearts of strangers. Daniel, who had only planned to face an awkward evening with quiet defiance, discovered a deeper purpose in giving someone dignity and hope. In the end, the story wasn't about wealth, appearances, or even redemption in the eyes of an ex, it was about human connection. One moment of compassion had opened doors Grace never imagined, while reminding Daniel that true richness comes from the lives we touch. And as they walked away from that night, each carrying the warmth of newfound possibility, they both knew that the greatest gift they had given each other wasn't a dress, a home, or a place at a wedding, it was the belief that they mattered. Sometimes, the smallest act can change the course of a life. And sometimes, it can change too.